Hi, I'm Toby Hammond, West Yorkshire County Youth Commissioner. I'm joined by no other than Sal. Hi, Sal.
Hey Toby, how's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Thanks for having me along tonight. Much appreciated.
No, you're more than welcome. Now, you've been so popular on our Facebook page. We've got so many questions to ask you.
Oh.
I'm going to jump straight in there.
Okay, awesome.
About your first kayak experience. When was that?
Oh, cool. Well, it was actually in the Scouts, which is pretty awesome. And it was on Scout camp. And I actually got to do it a few times, luckily, because I would always, whenever there was an option to choose what activities you wanted to do, and I always picked the water sports. I was very much a water baby, and would always choose kayaking and do as much as possible, basically.
So that sort of leads quite nicely onto my second question. And this is by our county kayak team that asked this. And they've asked, do you think that scouting and promotes kayaking? Do you think it plays an important role in the sport?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, for me, that was my first introduction to kayaking. Prior to that, I didn't even know that that sport existed. My family are not very sporty; they're not very outdoorsy. So Scouts was really the eye-opener to some of these activities that are on offer and kind of what you can do in your spare time if you want to. So yeah, I think it's awesome for getting people into like different sports and particularly kayaking. And by the sounds of it, is growing even more, which is awesome.
That's really good. Was your first experience a good one then, I take it?
Yeah. If I remember rightly, it was typical British kind of style, cold, raining, a bit dark, on a flat lake, but I absolutely loved it. I was still the first person on, the last one off, and I seem to remember quite a few games involving us trying to change kayaks and falling in and things. So it was a lot of fun, really loved it.
Brilliant. And I'm going to stick with the water team question here. And this is quite a technical one. It's maybe just your experience of it. Okay. How would you transition from flat water to moving water, and how did you go about that in your own learning?
So in the Scouts, as I said, I had quite a few opportunities to kayak, which is really cool. It wasn't like, because of the location of where we were, it wasn't something we could go and do on a weekly basis, but I did get to do it most summers at Scout camp. So I did have a few introductions to it, or a few times that I got to go and do it, but it was always on a flat lake, which is obviously very different to some of the kayaking I do now, but actually it's really essential, those skills that you learn on the flat water, without having that kind of that solid experience and knowing what to do in the kayak and on the water, you're not really able to take it to the next level. You need to get those skills solid first. So that introduction for me was great, and I think it actually helped me when it came to whitewater kayaking. I kind of skipped the phase that most people go through where they start kind of back again on the flat water and building up gradually. I actually kind of went straight into rapids pretty much straight away, which was really good fun.
Brilliant. So now I'm going to go on to obviously Steve Backshaw. Now this was a bit of major news, wasn't it, about you? And he is obviously one of our scouting ambassadors. And it's a question again from Facebook. And it said, did you feel more nervous the second day after the incident happened? Did you want to tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, so probably nervous isn't the right word. Probably a lot more aware. For people that don't know, the expedition was actually the first time I met Steve. We'd had a meeting or two prior, but they were in kind of a conference room. We didn't get to actually go kayaking. So Bhutan was our first time kayaking together. So I was already a bit on edge, because obviously I had quite a bit of responsibility and we had a great team and things, but we hadn't done a lot of kayaking together. And that's quite rare, that you would go on a big expedition like that with people that you perhaps don't know so well, or at least don't kayak with. So I'd say I was a little bit on edge anyway, but always kind of aware, and trying to be focused and keeping an eye on everyone. But I would say after Steve's kind of incident, my awareness was just heightened. I wouldn't say I was nervous. A little bit of nerves can sometimes be good for keeping you focused, but I think if you're too nervous, it's not actually very easy for you to do your job and to stay focused if you're too nervous. So I would just say that I was more aware, and it was quite obvious to me that, unsurprisingly, Steve was quite shook up from the incident. incident, and he was amazing. He knew that in order to get over there and get past it and continue the expedition, he knew he needed to get straight back in there. There was talk of whether to have a day or two off, stay at the base we're at, to give him a bit of a break. But we kind of decided between us, and he led this decision, which is really important. The best thing he could possibly do is to get back on with it and get back in his kayak. So that was really brave of him, and I had a lot of respect for him. And I would just say from that second day, I was perhaps a little bit more protective of him. I think I annoyed him a little bit. I was definitely a bit patronising at times, but that was me kind of looking after him and picking up on his kind of tensions and anxieties and wanting to make him feel more comfortable and have fun again. And luckily he gave it his best shot and we had a great time. And you physically saw him loosen up on the river. So that was really good to see.
That's really good and such an inspirational story as well. Now I'm going to change the mood a bit. We're going to go a bit lighter, light-hearted now. Your favourite paddle snack? Now, as a kayaker myself, I know that you'd like to just hide an odd snack in your boat. What do you hide in your boat?
I have a massive sweet tooth. So for me, it's usually chocolate. And for people that kayak, particularly whitewater, I think, your energy levels, you're constantly using so much energy. So even when you're not actually on the water as such, you're getting out, you're scouting, you're portaging, it all requires a lot of energy and your adrenaline is up and down. So it's good to have your regular kind of slow release kind of energy foods. But also for me, I really like to have a bit of sugar and a bit of a boost, particularly as we get on into the afternoon, because it's such a long time to focus, and especially if your role is to keep an eye on the rest of the team, you can never relax. You're constantly, even you don't have a chance to think about your own paddling very much. You're constantly watching the rest of the team and the river and what's coming up next. So for me, a bit of sugar is really appreciated. So I tend to, in every little zip on my buoyancy aid and my kayak and things, there's usually a little chocolate bar hidden away in there.
That was brilliant. We all know who we want to go paddling with now. So, Third Bingley, we've actually got 2 Sea Scout groups in our West Yorkshire, even though we're not by the sea. But this is a question from one of them. What challenges did you overcome on the 24-hour overnight paddle challenge this year?
Well, I'm wondering if that particular person heard an interview I did recently, because that was the first time I kind of talked about that challenge, because it was in February, and pretty much as soon as it was finished, that's when everything that happened this year kind of kicked off. And for me, it was actually a real big personal deal. Like for me, that was huge, and probably one of my biggest kind of personal achievements. But I kind of put it to one side and kind of forgot about it a little bit, because only a week or so later we were going into lockdown and the whole world was changing and my entire year was changing overnight. So it kind of got put on the back shelf a little bit. But it's only kind of recently, particularly as I've started kind of looking through footage and things from that time, that I realised how much of a game changer it was for me. Personally, so I'll explain a little bit about it for anyone that doesn't know. My favourite stretch of river in the UK is one of the favourites, but it's way up there, is the River Dart, so the Upper Dart, and it's quite steep, quite technical. As soon as you put a bit of juice in, it can get quite serious. And myself and 2 friends, Rob Harris and Rich Brooks, we were doing a charity 24-hour paddle. So repeatedly for 24 hours, it was from noon on the Friday till noon on the Saturday, running repeated laps of this kind of 4+ grade river, and that included through the night. And for me, and it was in February, so it was getting dark at kind of 5 p.m, wasn't getting light again until 6:37ish in the morning, so a lot of it was actually in the dark. And I was, to say I was nervous about that is an understatement. And the thought of paddling such a technical, steep river in the dark really worried me, and I was quite anxious about it. For weeks leading up to it, I was worried about it. I even started walking around the house with the lights off at night, trying to train myself to get better at kind of navigating in the dark. but it went really well actually, and it's probably one of the proudest things that I've done, to be honest. And I think that's kind of cool because, like I was saying in the previous interview, out of all these kind of amazing places I've been, and I've been so fortunate to go to some parts of the world that don't get explored very often. It's quite cool to think that one of my kind of most standout moments for myself was actually in the UK, like closer to home. So I think that's a pretty cool thing, and yeah, I definitely won't be forgetting it for a very long time.
That's really good, and it's really good to hear about challenges that you're facing yourself a bit closer to home. I think that's really relatable for some of our young people as well. Maybe their first time kayaking, and they can relate to that challenge.
Yeah, and
Now,
when you've been quite nervous about it, and I didn't speak to people about being nervous about it because I'm one of these people that thinks, okay, I'm going to battle through this and I'll find a way, and I'm going to train in certain ways, and I don't tend to tell people if I'm particularly nervous. So for me, completing it and actually going as well as it did, I was super happy about, and ultimately we managed to raise quite a lot of money for Children's Hospice as well. So all in all, it was a pretty positive experience.
yeah, which is just brilliant. Such a good feel-good news story as well.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go back to food.
Okay.
This is a bit of a theme here. Now I think you've declared yourself as a chipaholic.
Well, I don't think I personally gave myself that title, but it probably would suit, to be honest. I do love chips. In fact, I was paddling at the weekend, and as soon as I got off the river, went to go and get chips from the chip shop. So it's definitely a fun favourite.
Yeah, so the question relating to that is salad cream, mayo, ketchup, or salt and vinegar?
Oh, well, salad cream's a bit controversial. I'm not sure about that with chips. So I would say if there's an option of salt and vinegar, I'm always going to go for it. If they're chip shop chips, I will go for curry sauce. Ooh, if it's oven chips at home, probably a bit of mayo.
That sounds brilliant to me.
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before.
Well, there's always a first in scouting.
Yeah, it's an important one, I think.
Yeah, be prepared is our motto. You never know what you're going to get. So here's another, we're going to go back away from food slightly now. So do you prefer rivers or seas to kayaking? I know obviously a bit more white water, aren't you? So it's more river-based, but which one do you prefer in your own leisure time?
So I will always pick rivers. That's my big passion, really. Mostly because I just feel, I love that feeling of you and your team, because normally a very small group of people, and you're basically working as a team to negotiate yourselves down that piece of white water, and you've got that, even if you're not that far away from civilization, it feels wild and it feels remote. Even in Dartmoor at the weekend, we were only really ever about an hour away from the main road, but actually you feel like you're in another part of the world. And I love that feeling, and I love the that kind of sense of it's you and your team. You've got to work this out between you. There's kind of no one there to help you, and there's no kind of, oh, if it's not going very well, you just click your fingers and it's all over kind of thing. I love that kind of challenge about it. But equally, I do love the sea, and I have spent a lot of time on the sea this summer. Obviously, travel all got kind of cancelled this year. And there wasn't always the option to train on whitewater. We rely heavily on rain here in the UK. And surprisingly, for people that aren't kayakers, no, we don't get enough rain. And the whitewater courses were shut for a lot of the summer. So I actually was on the sea a lot, and myself and Steve spent a lot of time in Cornwall and Devon this summer, just getting in any training we could, really, whether it was flat water training on the sea or on the rivers, or we'd take our playboats out and get out in the surf. And we also did a really nice sea kayaking trip as well. I think it was about 4 days, and each evening we were camping on the beach. So I love all of it, to be honest. I think any time you're out, particularly on water, with your friends, out kind of in wildlife and countryside, camping, out under the stars and things, you're always going to have an amazing time. But given the choice, for me, it would be rivers.
Brilliant. That sounds really good. So how far, what's the furthest point north and the furthest point south have you paddled?
Oh, I'm not too sure. Also my geography is not very good. This is where you're going to catch me out.
Don't worry. Make up something. No one will know.
Well, I can tell you where I have paddled in the world.
Yeah, that would be
there's
exciting.
a lot of places I would still like to paddle, but they're on the list. Depending on how the rest of the next few months go, no one really knows, do they?
No.
But up to date, so originally kind of outside the UK, my first few kayaking trips were mostly around Europe, so kind of Austria, Switzerland, Italy, France, and then to Norway. And then my first big trip on my own to the Himalayas was in Nepal.
Brilliant.
I then went back to Nepal leading up to the trip with Steve and Bhutan. I've done 3 winters in South America. So I've paddled in Ecuador, Peru, Chile and Argentina. And I have just got back from another trip with Steve, which we can't go into too much detail about, but I will tell you that there's a very exciting program on its way. And we were in a place called Kamchatka, which is the very eastern part of Russia. Very well known for the amount of bears that are there, which I can confirm is a lot. And then apart from that, I've also done a bit of kayaking in New Zealand, America, Canada, and Uganda. I think
So
that's
when is this
so
new
far.
program coming out?
Well, we haven't got a date yet. Steve did let it slip that he's seen a few parts of it and it's very good. But at the moment, there's no word of when it'll be out. I'm guessing it early next year, but I am yet to have it confirmed. I'll let you know as soon as I hear anything.
Definitely, because I'm sure we'll all be tuning into that, especially with both of you on it.
Oh yeah, and it's going to be a good one. I know that for sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That sounds like we'll need to get you back onto this after when it comes out, so we could talk a bit more about it.
Yeah, we'll get Steve on as well, and then you can hear both sides of it.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be really, really good. So another one, you might not know this, but what's the longest trip you've paddled in miles?
Ooh.
Or do you just tend to do short ones because you're rapids?
It completely depends, to be honest. So the trip that I've done recently with Steve, the main aim of that was to paddle the entire stretch of the river, so from source to sea. Again, can't go into too much detail, but that took us about 5 days.
Wow, a long time, really.
Yeah.
I bet you got sore.
Yeah.
Paddling that many days.
Definitely got tired. So that's probably one of the longer ones. The Himalayas is quite well known for its multi-days. So Nepal, for instance, there are a few sections that you could paddle in a day, but it's kind of famous for its multi-day sections. So majority of the rivers you will be on for a minimum of 3 days, sometimes right up to kind of 7 or 8 days. So I'd say a lot of my longest rivers have probably been in Nepal. Which if you ever get the chance to go, definitely go check it out.
So actually, West Yorkshire Scouts ran a trip to the Himalayas a few years ago. Yeah, we've got a really good international team that run lots of different trips. But yeah, so that's been, so we'll have to wait for it to come back around because there's so many countries, as you know. I mean, where's the country you'd like to go next?
You know what? There's so many places I would like to go. I have a bit of a weak spot for South America. I think because it was one of the places that I've done so much traveling kind of on my own in, which obviously there's a lot of kind of ups and downs and different emotions and things. I think it's started to feel a bit like a second home. So I was hoping to go this year, but obviously things have changed a little bit. But I would definitely like to do more exploring in South America. I've paddled a lot of the more well-known classic runs, but less so the kind of the first descents and the less explored kind of rivers. So I'd like to go and do a bit more exploring there, really.
That sounds really good. Now we are coming to the end of the questions. You'll be relieved to know.
Oh, no.
What would the message be for a scout or an explorer or a cub or a beaver, because we do kayaking with our beavers in West Yorkshire, and maybe they're a bit nervous or apprehensive about the first session. What would your advice be for them?
I think it's really important that you just have fun and enjoy it. So when I was a scout and I was going kayaking on the lake and things, I didn't at that point, I didn't know that people went and did it on big scary rivers and white water and things. I thought it was just something that you did on the lake at scout camp. So I just absolutely loved it. And I think that's the reason why it took over my life so much, and I did start dedicating so much time and effort and money to it, is because I genuinely enjoyed it. And the more I did, the more I wanted to do. And I kind of think that if I didn't enjoy it as much as I had, there obviously wouldn't have been that passion, that drive, but there also wouldn't be much reason to it. Like, you have to make choices, and sometimes we have to choose between maybe going out with our friends and things or going and training. You've got to want it enough to put that time in and to kind of sacrifice some of the like time with your friends and things. But yeah, just make sure you're having fun. And yeah, just go from there really. If you're enjoying it, do more. And just keep trying to learn as much as you can.
That's such brilliant advice. Now, before you go, is there a last message or a shout out you want to give or anything like that?
Well, as you'll know from the initial Scouts interview I did, I just want to say a huge thank you to you guys, in particular, you leaders, because I've heard from various sources that you've all been amazing. This year we've had some massive challenges, and the fact that so many of you have been really well driven and motivated to keep doing kind of your virtual meetups, your Zoom calls, and just trying to keep everyone kind of motivated and keep going and stuff. I just think it's awesome. So I just wanted to thank you guys in particular, because I think you're doing an amazing job. And to everyone else, to all the Scouts, Beavers, Cubs, all of you, you're all just doing awesome things, and keep up the good work. And I hope that next year we can get out a bit more, kind of get together, do some fun activities, start maybe putting on some trips and some courses and stuff, and just let's get our hands dirty and go and have some fun, and hopefully be all able to meet up again soon.
Yeah, and you're definitely more than welcome in West Yorkshire anytime you want.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sure the kayaking team would love you to come along to one of theirs.
One of my favourite rivers is in Yorkshire, the River Swale.
Oh, definitely. Next time you're there, make sure you pop into us on your way around.
I'd love to. But yeah, hopefully next year we can all kind of go paddling together, meet up, maybe do some workshops and stuff. That would be awesome fun. So we'll hold out and see what happens next few months. But I'd love to.
That sounds really good. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone that's watched for our last in the series, In Conversation for Now. But don't worry, it will be back later on in the year. All right, speak to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.